today. There's a lot of you. I was asked to share my story, and I'm excited to do that, actually. My story for tonight begins in May of 1996. I married my best friend in the temple and thought that my life was pretty ideal for a 20-year-old. I was excited to start a family. We always knew we wanted a family. And to be honest, I sort of assumed that being a mother was a given, that it was just going to happen. And to be honest, when it didn't, and when I hadn't prepared myself for 6 years of medical procedures and infertility and miscarriages, and to be honest, it shook me a little bit. I found myself unprepared for what I had to deal with. And so my husband and I had talked about adoption before we were married. You know, that conversation, like, it would be so cool to adopt someday. And we thought, well, our someday is a little bit sooner than we thought. And so we poured our hearts into the adoption process locally, and nothing worked out. It was pretty impossible. We were really discouraged. And I felt even darker. So I decided I needed to spend some time at the temple. And I took work off, and I went every week. And when that wasn't enough, I went twice a week. And I really came to rely on that time I had with the Lord. I asked a lot of questions and waited for answers. And one day, I got the answer that was simply, it's going to be okay. And I left not sure what that meant, but I left a little bit lighter than I went in. And that unstable ground that I had been walking on all of a sudden felt really stable. So my husband and I prayed about international adoption, and we felt hope, which we had not felt in a really long time, and started to ask around for anyone that knew anything that could help us. We heard of an LDS bishop in Haiti that had an orphanage and was looking for families, particularly LDS families, to adopt. And so we went to the agency, and as soon as we sat down, we knew that our child was waiting for us in that orphanage. So we filled out all the paperwork as quickly as we could, and we waited. And the time came for the social worker to assign us a child, and they gave us a few profiles to look at. And I felt really strongly about one little boy, and my husband about another. And we tried and tried to convince the other one why they were wrong. And we could not agree. We just could not concede. So we went back to the temple and spent some time praying about which of these children was ours. And so as we were sitting over our post-temple Chinese food, we looked at each other and instantly said, they're both ours. So we changed our paperwork and began the adoption of 2 little boys. Now, for those of you who don't know, international adoption, or adoption in general, is like the biological mother's childbirth experience. It is awful. There is a lot of waiting and a lot of unsurety. And so we waited, and we were unsure, but the time came to get on a plane and go meet our sons in Haiti. That experience was surreal. I can't really explain it, but I will tell you that the moment they handed each of us our son, we looked at them, and it was as though we had known them forever. A lot happened on that trip, and a lot happened when I came home. I was once again completely unprepared to be a mother of these 2 little boys that needed so much. Isaac was 15 months when he came home, and he weighed 10 pounds. Trey was 12 months old, and he weighed 13. So we had a lot to overcome together, physically, emotionally. We had a lot to do as a family. In those darkest times, I would remember that time I had in the temple, and all of a sudden, I remembered that I was prepared for this. I had been prepared for this. I could do this. And so I did. I just kept doing it. I just kept doing what I needed to do. And I couldn't stop thinking about that small little home that the bishop owned, and all of those children that had been crawling and sleeping and crying. Most of them were, just had a wet diaper on, and I thought, there has to be something I can do, but I have no money. I don't know anyone with money. And the Lord told me that I had what they needed, and so I had time. I had had all of these years of work experience, and so I called the bishop and said, I need to help. There's something I need to do. So I started by facilitating adoptions and helping other adoptive mothers through the process because I knew it was going to be bad. I knew it was going to be hard, and I would spend time telling them it's going to be okay, it's going to work. And I started to take these quarterly trips to Haiti. And as I would do that, as I would take these parents back, I came to know all of the children in the orphanage's names. And when I would come, they would yell my name and scream and hang out the windows. And I just remember thinking, here I am here to serve them, and they are filling me. And how did I ever doubt that this path that the Lord had set me on was His? I continued to take those trips, and about 5 years in, the Lord told me there were these 3 beautiful girls that were mine. So, imagine that conversation with my husband when I came home. And he said, so, how was your trip? I said, funny you should ask. The Lord told me there's 3 more girls. We need to double our family size. And he said, are you sure? A few times, but he is a good man. He knows that the Lord answers prayers. Sometimes we don't even know that we are offering. And he agreed to come back to Haiti with me. And as soon as he met them and gave them a hug, he looked at me and said, yep, it's undeniable, they're ours. So we started the next process of adoption, which same red tape, same length of time, same challenges. But we also came upon the realization the orphanage had been filling up 1 home, and then 2 homes, and then 3 homes. As a matter of fact, in the beginning, my girls were in different homes. And so the bishop said, I need to have all of my children in one place. And I remember him walking with me across this piece of property in Croix de Bouquet and saying, this is where the children will run and play together. And I was so confused because we were barely raising enough money to feed the children 1 time a day. I had no idea how he could have the kind of faith to know that we could do this. And once again, I do not have these talents. I am an accounting major. I don't know how to build a building. I don't know how to ask people for money. But the Lord told me, if Bishop Marty can have the faith that he has, you can too. And so he continued to just guide people to me. We came upon a small family foundation that agreed to fund the building. And so we were in the middle of building it, which took a long time. It wasn't completed in January of 2010 when a devastating earthquake hit this country that I loved so dearly, and my 3 daughters were in at the time. My husband, being the good man that he is, again, gathered up some medical supplies, an emergency room doctor, a translator, and found his way to Haiti via the Dominican Republic. I can't really go into all of the miracles that took place over that time, but as he was searching for church members and children, I can tell you that the Lord was very aware of those people and his children in Haiti at that time. So while he was on the ground working at the orphanage, I was on the phone working with the embassy and trying to get through some of the paperwork. And another very unexpected blessing, the woman said, I have all of your paperwork right here. I have just been given clearance to send a certain number of Haitians over on humanitarian parole. If your husband can get here in 24 hours with your girls, I think I can get them home. So 24 hours later, my 6'6" husband and 3 daughters were strapped to the floor of a military C-130, which for those of you that don't know is for carrying tanks, not people. But they just had these little strips of duct tape, and they put a bungee cord over them and sent them home. I had no idea where they were going to land because of safety reasons. They couldn't tell us anything. But at 2 o'clock in the morning, I got a call that they were in Sanford, Florida. They had just had a shower, some hamburgers from Burger King, I think, and they were excited to be in the United States. They put their clothes on that they had been wearing for a week and got ready to fly home, and my poor girls, who had never flown before, thought they were going to be strapped to the floor of this aircraft carrier again, and my husband had to convince them they were going to get their own seats and their own seatbelts, and most importantly, they knew that they were coming home that time. So they made it home, And somewhere in the middle of my story, I had a biological daughter too, because, our life wasn't interesting enough. So I have to tell you how many times I would sit around my dinner table and just be in awe of this beautiful, unexpected, complete family that I never imagined for myself. I was just overwhelmed with the love that Heavenly Father had for me, and upset at myself for doubting Him at any time. The orphanage was finished, the children moved in, and we realized that they really needed an education. So many of them were aging out, and so we shifted our focus to education and worked with some local nonprofits to start a program where we would sponsor local Haitian families to raise chickens and give half to the orphanage so that they would get a little bit of protein and half to themselves. My story, my family's story, I think is a testament to the idea that God has a plan for all of us, that He loves us, and that we have a choice to make in those dark times. We can either stay in them or we can arise out of them. I am grateful for the opportunity that I've had to live the life that I have, and I'm grateful that I chose to just stop doubting Him and start walking in the way that He led me to. And I say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.